Hi, Michael King joining you again from the Cosmosis Mentoring Centre. I want to talk today about ending the cycle of addiction. This is such an important part of personal growth. We live in a world where we are programmed to consume. Most of us are addicted to our hedonistic lifestyles, seeking pleasure, and our comfort zones, which are literally killing our planet. We live in a world of armchair critics where most everyone has an opinion while hiding behind their online pseudo-identity. The many sit in self-righteous condemnation, and very few in these times are genuine leaders. Entertain me, stimulate me, more information to plug into my brain is how people live their lives. Most people in the Western world are hooked on something, whether it's information, computer games, tobacco, shopping, exercising, TV, illegal drugs, or even the legal drugs like alcohol and coffee. It's all about trying to manipulate our body chemistry in order to feel good. I'm speaking from experience here, having battled with substance addiction for over 10 years of my life. I have been clean now for almost 20 years, and I personally do not indulge at all, not even the legal drugs like alcohol and coffee, and I do so as a choice made in self-love. Once you're hooked on something, anything, you are in trouble. This is because the lower mind, in particular the instinctive and habitual minds, and the associated brain physiology, are actually changed by the behaviour of addiction. All addictions have a certain toxicity associated with them, and not just physiological toxicity, but also toxicity in the emotional and mental bodies and at primal soul level. Addictions do more than just change your body chemistry. They actually change the circuitry within your emotional and mental bodies as well. Now, this change of circuitry is what causes the cravings on various levels for that which you are addicted to. These changes affect your decision-making ability in every area of your life. The toxic effects which cause these cravings require at least a full year of being clean to dissipate enough to allow you to make wise choices. The basic problem with addiction is that admission is free, or at least that's how it seems at the time. It does not matter if the addiction is to recreational drugs or to computer games, the dynamics are the same, and it's mostly about the cheap, vicarious thrill. Getting a fix on some level with little or no work required. Real life requires effort in the real world to be successful. To play sport, you have to train to develop real life skills. And to be in a band, you have to study music and so on. To be accepted into the drug and alcohol culture, all you need to do is to be willing to use drugs and or alcohol. To be accepted into the sex addict culture, all you need to do is to be willing to be promiscuous and have lots of casual sex. To be accepted into the shallow, superficial life of glamour of many of the rich and famous, all you need to do is to play by the rules of their world. This one, of course, is a little harder to get into as you need to be rich, but the theory is basically the same. You don't have to be clever, smart, athletic, talented, skilled, or funny. You just have to engage in the superficial culture of that group. No skill is required. You simply have to get out of it in whatever way that particular culture demands of its members. Computer gaming is a modern epidemic, but the dynamic is still the same. You get the vicarious thrill with little work, with little risk, and no courage required. Gamers will tell you that a bit of manual dexterity and hand-eye coordination allows them to have the same thrill that otherwise would require considerable personal risk. The difference is, though, that it's not real. So there's no personal growth involved in that. Gaming is the perfect pastime for those that are too lazy or cowardly to actually get out and live their life. The real problem here is that these activities appeal to a very basic primal human need, which is the need for acceptance. Given that one of our deepest fears is rejection, combined with the easy, no-effort acceptance within addictive cultures, we have a recipe for disaster. For those people who have a negative personal myth at the core of their being, those who believe they are defective or unlovable, for instance, then it's very easy for them to gravitate into these destructive cultures of addiction. The truth is that people turn to a life of addiction in order to avoid some painful truth in their life. In the long term, nothing about being an addict is easy. While you are addicted to something, your emotional maturing process stops dead in its tracks. You stop tackling the real issues in your life, and you get bogged down deeper and deeper into an emotional investment in denial and avoidance. Addiction is a chronic disease, and you need professional help to recover. You're not going to do it yourself. The changes to one's biochemical and electromagnetic systems caused by some addictions are so extensive that it can take years or lifetimes to restore a healthy balance in your life. A huge part of the recovery is making the decision to stop living life vicariously and to instead engage with life, building and honing your life skills and abilities so that you can gain respect and acceptance within a group of peers rather than settling for the acceptance of a group of fellow dysfunctional addicts. That's really important. An addiction is a dependency on a substance, behaviour or thought process that came about as a coping mechanism for the pain you feel inside. It's a way of coping and getting through life. Addictions come in many forms. The alcoholic believes that he needs alcohol to get through the day, to mask his or her feelings. The drug addict feels the same. They feel the same about their drug fix. And the person who feels that in order to be safe their house needs to be clean, they're using that activity in the same way. The person who is convinced that they need to be with someone to be happy will find themselves in relationship after relationship chasing the high from relationships when they first form to fill the void in their life. So that becomes an addiction. The man who ties all of his self-worth to his work and then retires and finds it hard to adjust without his work fix, and after all he's been praised all his life for being a good provider, and the list goes on endlessly. It's all the same thing. An addiction is anything that you do without choice to ensure that you feel safe. A test to see whether you are addicted to something is to set the task of going without for 40 days and 40 nights. If you have any reaction whatsoever by abstaining, then you have an unhealthy relationship with your substance, your behaviour or your thought process. Now, you need to apply the 40-day test to everything in your life that you may be addicted to. Your Cosmosis mentor will help you to undergo this process of weeding out your self-defeating addictive behaviour. It's part of the Cosmosis training. You may need to use it on anger, coffee, cigarettes, depression, misery, alcohol, cleaning, exercise, work, sex, chocolate, spirituality, television, makeup, computer games, pornography, shopping, controlling behaviour, or even prescription medication. And that's just naming a few. One of the key spiritual awakening practices that every serious seeker of truth is called to do is to test their attachment to certain of their habits. This can be any habit. One of our Cosmosis mentors is a medical doctor, and she can help you if you feel you have a problem with prescription medication. If there is one sentence to sum up the intention underlying an addiction, it would be, stay small and suffer. Any form of addiction whatever form it may take, will therefore prevent spiritual growth, because the addiction will continually sabotage any attempt to grow, no matter what form the growth takes. This directly contrasts the philosophy of spiritual growth, which is basically shine as brightly and as clearly as you can in love and acceptance of all that is. Spiritual growth can be very challenging, but it always emphasises letting go of what you no longer need, and it also emphasises opening your mind to larger truths and to deeper questions in your life, all about your place in the universe. Spiritual growth asks you that you put down all of your masks and that you become as authentic as you possibly can. So addictions in any form are designed by you to ensure that you hide the truth of who you are at all costs. Addictions do not make good companions. The addiction will always win. This is why, in order to grow spiritually, you need to first recognize and acknowledge that you have an issue, and then address it, however you choose to do that. You can use the Cosmosis process or whatever works for you. I am speaking from personal experience here, as I myself used to move in circles of friends and family where one simply did not go out or stay in without drinking alcohol or doing drugs. It came to a point in my own life where substances and I became a dangerous combination. It ruined my first marriage. It started to open me up to a dark and dangerous region of my soul. And sadly, all addictions will ultimately lead you to such a place within. I spent many years in denial until I realised that I needed to change profoundly. I thought that others had an alcohol problem, but I didn't. Alcoholics were people who drank all the time, had difficulty with relationships, and couldn't hold down a job. Even though alcohol had destroyed my first marriage, I was okay because I didn't drink every day, most days, but not every day, and I was working 3 jobs. At the time, I simply couldn't imagine my life without drinking alcohol and doing drugs. Now, I cannot imagine my life as it once was. Denial is a great thing. One doesn't have to change. You simply continue on your way with your head in the sand. The problem with alcohol, as with most drugs, is their addictive nature. The drug begins to control the life of the individual and not the other way around, although you often think that you're the one that you are in control. The addiction's in control. I started the process of giving up alcohol in part, but that didn't work for me, and I've not really known it to ever really work for anyone. In the end, it was all or nothing, and that's the way it remains for me. It's one of the best and probably one of the most courageous decisions I have ever made and kept. In the process, I grew enormously. In that process, I had to give up some good friends. I had to find new friends who didn't drink and do drugs. One of the signs of addiction is that even when you're not directly engaged in the action of the addiction, it's still on your mind. In other words, you're looking forward to the next time when you can engage in the activity of the addiction. You may not be drinking for a couple of days, but you're looking forward to the next time that you can have a few drinks. Anyone who's serious about spiritual awakening will, at some point on their spiritual journey, have to make what are often difficult choices in relation to their lifestyle. I remember someone who I really admire, the author and teacher, Dr. Wayne Dwyer, and he's written about the choice that he had to make about doing the work that he felt called to do, and the choice to stop drinking alcohol. In our modern civilized society, we have no real rituals of initiation for our young people. We leave them to initiate themselves through difficult periods of transition in their young lives. We leave them to experiment with poisons that damage their bodies, sometimes in the short term, but always in the long term. We license powerful drugs without proper testing that are becoming more and more powerful, and we collectively pretend that this is okay. understand this, that there is no safe level of alcohol or recreational drug consumption. The myth of a safe level of drinking is a very powerful claim. It is a myth. It is one of the many myths that health professionals appear to believe in, and that the alcohol industry uses to defend its strategy of making the drug readily available at low prices. However, the claim is wrong, just wrong, and the supporting evidence is flawed. There is no safe dose of alcohol for these reasons. Alcohol is a toxin that kills cells such as microorganisms, which is why they use it to preserve food and sterilise skin and needles, etc. Alcohol kills humans too. A dose only 4 times as high as the legal limit for blood alcohol for drunk driving will kill you. The toxicity of alcohol is worsened because in order for it to be cleared from the body, it has to be metabolized to even more toxic substances. There's a lot of research which links it to Alzheimer's disease and dementia. The supposed cardiovascular benefits of a low level of alcohol intake in some middle-aged men cannot be taken as proof that alcohol is beneficial. To do that, one would need a randomised trial where part of this group would drink no alcohol, others would drink small amounts and others more heavily. Now, that experiment hasn't been done. Until this experiment has been done, we don't have proof that alcohol has health benefits. It's a myth. A recent example of where a previously held health myth belief was proved false was when hormone replacement therapy was finally tested properly. Population observations suggested that hormone replacement therapy was beneficial for postmenopausal women. But when controlled trials were conducted, it was found to cause more harm than good. Trials are not likely to be done on alcohol because the taxes sustain the government coffers and many of the politicians are addicts themselves. For all other diseases associated with alcohol, there is no evidence of any benefit of low alcohol intake. The risks of accidents, cancer, ulcers, etc. rise hugely with intake. Now, hopefully these observations will help to bring to you some honesty in your own debate about alcohol, which very conservatively kills over 2.25 million people worldwide in the 2011 World Health Organization report. I used to think that because I was a serious spiritual seeker and one who had been graced by a deep spiritual awakening, that I could handle a relationship with alcohol and drugs. As I found out to my cost, addiction can enter one's life at any point. Alcohol is a depressive and it is highly addictive. It is easy to get into the habit of drinking, and the habit of drinking alcohol every day is an easy one to acquire. Globally, through the spiritual community, we have a river of denial running concerning the use of substances to manipulate blood chemistry. Globally, we have an increasingly dysfunctional relationship with alcohol and drugs, as well as many other forms of modern addiction. As a culture in denial, we invite an escalating destruction of the physical, mental and spiritual health of our planet, and especially the health of our young people. If you have any inclination that you may have an addiction, then give it up for 40 days and 40 nights. Over that period of 40 days and 40 nights, one enters the desert of addiction in its many forms. You might choose to give up watching television. You might choose to give up reading magazines and newspapers. Anything can be an addiction which can be holding you back. It's not to say that it is, but it can be. You might choose to give up tea or coffee. You know that coffee contains over 200 known toxic and carcinogenic chemicals. Abstaining for 40 days and 40 nights will show you how addicted you are to any substance or activity. This can be quite an eye-opener for many, many people. There's absolutely no place for addictive behaviour in the life of an initiate on the spiritual path. No place. Get some help and get your life clean. Your body is your temple. While you can get involved in our mentoring and coaching programs at the Cosmosis Mentoring Centre, as soon as you cease your substance abuse, your involvement is on probation and at the discretion of the individual mentor involved that you're going to be working with. Once you have been clean from recreational drugs for a year and or alcohol for 3 months, then you are eligible to commence working seriously through the Cosmosis Transformational Initiations. We all hope to see you soon at one of our Cosmosis Transformational events. And maybe I'll see you upstairs. May love restore the balance.